Hi, I'm County Commissioner Josh Brown. I'm here with Burnette, and we're back with another episode of Commissioner's Corner. So thanks for joining us.
And welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a few months since our last episode.
I think the last time you were on, Commissioner, might have been June or July, and during the campaign, the Commissioner took a break from taping, and he has been reelected. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to more of your service with the county, and wow, it's been a lot of work, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a long year, but look forward to working on some great things in the next 4 years.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
So lots of things have been happening in your district specifically that we haven't been able to keep updated with the county. Let's talk about the Hazelwood YMCA.
Well, if folks have been by the Hazelwood YMCA in Silverdale, you'll see a lot of progress. So we broke ground on the Y a couple months ago, and the Y is planned to open up next spring. This is a $20 million project. You see the walls up, the roof will be up pretty soon, and this really will be a project that's going to transform the community. And the thing that really excites me as an opportunity for Kitsap County is we have a terrific Y in Bremerton, the Kitsap family Y, which has served our community for many generations. This will be our second Y in Silverdale. We need Ys in North and South Kitsap eventually. We know that. When the county began this partnership with the Y 3 years ago, we did a market survey that told us there was demand not only in Silverdale but in North and South Kitsap. So my hope is, as we are completing this project, and people are very excited in Central Kitsap and in Silverdale about the Y. But until it opens, I don't think people are going to really understand the impact that this is going to make to improve our community. And when it does open, and when folks see this packed facility with teens, seniors, families, all coming together using a facility, folks are going to say, wow, how did we live in Silverdale without this being in our community for this many years? And then the challenge will become, how do we expand in North and South Kitsap? And really what we did in Silverdale was the county had property as part of our Central Kitsap Community Campus project. We donated that property to the Y to be able to have the Y located there on the campus project. And then the county worked collaboratively with the Y to help raise money. Remember, 95% of the funding for this project is coming either from the Y directly, through charitable contributions, or for grants. So we're getting this amazing recreational facility for the public, and where the county contributed only $1 million for a $20 million project. So figuring out, whether it's in Port Orchard or somewhere in North Kitsap, the next location, and how we have a strategic expansion in the next couple of years, I think that's going to be one of my big priorities as commissioner, is figuring out how do we continue this progress with partnerships with organizations like the Y.
Excellent. There's been an LID project, and that's a local improvement district project very close to Kitsap Fairgrounds, which is where we're sitting, regarding pervious surface and paving. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the county, about a year and a half ago, we adopted a water as a resource policy. And what that means, quite simply, is the county directed all of our departments, with Public Works being the most critical of our departments, to look at all the things that we're doing in terms of our policies for our sewer treatment plants, our stormwater programs, our county road infrastructure, other public infrastructure such as parks and public buildings. And we directed our departments to look at how the county does a better job of reducing our impact on Puget Sound. The number one impact negatively to Puget Sound is stormwater runoff. So we saw that massive oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, where you had one oil well that provided disastrous outcomes for the Gulf. Well, every day in Puget Sound, because we have in the central Puget Sound area over 3 million people living here, we have vehicles, my car, your car, everybody's car drives down the street, leaks oil, copper breaks off from our brakes, and all of this adds up over time. So that in the 1970s, the EPA, when it was established by President Nixon, was focused on what was called point pollution, which means pollution that comes from one source, a factory dumping into the Duwamish River. That's very specific and that's very clear and it's very concrete that it's that factory or that mess that is getting into a river or our waterways. But what we're dealing with now is non-point pollution. And what that means is there isn't one isolated event or location. The pollution is not coming from one massive location like the oil spill in the Gulf. It's coming from many, many events that when added up over time and collectively provide a significant negative impact to Puget Sound. Because every year there's millions of gallons of oil that and other pollutants that are going into Puget Sound. It's just you don't see it on the TV. It's not a big event on CNN.
Right.
But all of us are contributing it in some part. So that water as a resource policy, our goal is to reduce the county's impact. And we're doing that a couple ways. Number one, with our Central Kitsap treatment plant, which is our largest treatment plant, and the CK treatment plant in Brownsville serves Silverdale, serves many residents in unincorporated East Bremerton, but also serves as a treatment plant for the city of Paulsbo, Naval Base Keyport, and Bangor. So we're providing,
that's a huge area.
We're providing a lot of sewer infrastructure for residents and for industrial infrastructure at our two military bases. We are in the process of upgrading that plant. There's a lot of things, because the plant is 30 some odd years old, that need to be upgraded because of new regulations, or frankly there's equipment that's just old that we need to replace because it's outlived its useful life. In addition to all those basic things that we need to do, we plan to upgrade our Central Kitsap treatment plant, our largest treatment plant out of our four, with what's called tertiary treatment. What that means is that the new treatment standards that we're going to put in place will allow Kitsap County to eventually use the water that we discharge into Puget Sound every year, millions and millions of gallons. We're going to treat it to a Class A standard, which means it'll be treated to a level that down the road we can eventually use that water for water reuse.
Right.
And we see West Sound Utility down in Port Orchard. They have higher treatment standards where they can use their water for reuse. And there's a lot of potential to be able to use that to recharge aquifers, eventually use purple pipes. But more importantly, the immediate impact is that the water that we're discharging, the effluent that we're discharging into Puget Sound every year will be treated better. Kind of the second big component that we're looking at is what are all the things the county's doing to control stormwater in general, because that's the biggest impact. And part of that is through our stormwater program, part of that is through county roads. So we contribute a lot of funding from our county road department and our county road fund to our surface and stormwater program, because the biggest impact in terms of pervious surface in Kitsap County are our public roadways. So we should be part of the solution. And we're going to be looking at how we retrofit roads. And here in Central Kitsap and in North and South, we've had 3 pilot projects where we have where we've taken neighborhoods that had pavement that we needed to redo, and instead of putting classic pavement in place, we put pervious pavement in place, which is a low impact development technique. And that low impact development means that instead of all that stormwater going into a catch basin, going out into Puget Sound, that the water stays on site. When you have pervious pavement, if you poured a pitcher of water, it gets absorbed and it goes right into the soils naturally as if it was a forested condition. It helps recharge the aquifers, but more importantly, the pollution and the oil and the chemicals that are normally would go out into the bay, they're clean naturally through the soils and through the natural chemical reactions that you have that Mother Nature provides. So this is a pilot project, but the county is committed to figuring out how we retrofit our major roadways. We're going to do several studies, places like Silverdale and Kingston, Suquamish, Manchester, looking at how do we retrofit our county roads. The city of Bremerton did a great job retrofitting Pacific Avenue with pervious pavement, pervious asphalt. The YMCA project, most of the parking there will be pervious.
Excellent.
So we have some great pilot projects that are moving forward, and they're all fitting together with what the county's doing to live up to our water as a resource policy. But I think the real critical thing that folks need to understand is that if we're really serious about reducing stormwater and cleaning up Puget Sound, The county cannot do it alone.
Amen.
The city can't, our cities can't do it alone, the state. This is not going to be a problem solved by government. It's going to be a problem solved by all of us. And along with the county doing things, taking the lead on making improvements, the other significant element of our strategy is public outreach, public education, getting support from the community. That's why we've created a rain garden program, not led by a regulatory agency, but led by the Kitsap Conservation District and by Washington State Extension. We want to train neighbors to be able to install their own rain gardens, which is a low-impact development technique to reduce stormwater runoff. We've created a beach watchers program. Again, volunteers that are going to go out. They're the beach on their property. They're going to own it, and they're going to be stepping up to the plate to volunteer and be responsible for being part of the solution. So I think we're really trying to get things right in Kitsap County, and it's not a problem cleaning up Puget Sound that we're going to solve overnight. It's going to take many, many years, but we're going to have to, if we're going to be successful, we're going to have to do it together, and some of these projects are the county's first efforts to really build momentum.
Josh, another project that has happened in your district, and you and I didn't talk about this off camera, but I attended it a couple weeks ago, was the dedication at the Illahee Preserve.
Right.
And a dedication and really honoring Audrey Boyer for her work in just really pushing that and pushing that. Tell us a little, it was pouring rain that day, but there was a great turnout because Audrey is, she's very well known in the community, and when she wants something done, man, she lights everybody up.
Well, Audrey Boyer is the heart and soul of the Illahee community. She truly is. And she was a longtime teacher in our community and a longtime advocate for protecting open space and protecting the environment.
Acquiring the Illahee Preserve, getting that land.
The, that property that, the story of the Illahee Preserve is a story of Audrey Boyer. Realizing this is critical open space. The state at the time, because that was property controlled by the Department of Natural Resources, was looking to log it and eventually develop it, because the Illahee Preserve is 400 acres of critical open space in the middle of our most urbanized area in Kitsap County. So we have, between unincorporated residents and residents in the city of Bremerton and East Bremerton, if you look at the map from Burnette all the way up to Brownsville, that area has about 40,000 people living in East Bremerton. And that 400 acres was slated to eventually be developed, and you would have seen hundreds and hundreds of homes there. Audrey fought to have that property protected. And what's an amazing, just fortunate circumstances for the community and for Kitsap County is that Audrey's student, who she taught in elementary school and I think later in junior high or high school, was Speaker of the House Frank Chop, who grew up right next to the Illahee Preserve and as a kid would run through the Illahee Preserve.
What did they call it? They
the
called
Lost
it the
Continent.
Lost Continent.
Yeah, Frank Chop and his, the kids called it the Lost Continent because you go through the Illahee Preserve and the old growth forests. They're just very unique. And as you hike through the Illahee Preserve, you see very different types of trees and the way the way the park is set up. It's very unique. You can kind of go from one ecosystem to the next.
Right.
So Audrey led the effort and built the support through the neighbors to acquire this property from the state, and through the leadership of Speaker Chop, we were able to have that property set aside. Eventually, the county took it over, purchased it, and it's become the Illahee Preserve. So we had a celebration this past, a couple weeks ago, and there was a large glacier rock that was found in the park. It's been located, it was moved to one of the main access points off of our new parking lot, because we had opened the new parking lot, which the Illahee Community Club was terrific in terms of working with the county to develop. The rock is right at the major gateway, next to the parking area, and there's a plaque that dedicates, and recognizes Audrey Boyer and Speaker Chop for their great work. And I think it says Audrey Boyer, the teacher, and Frank Chop, the student, I think is what it says.
Cool.
So it's very special, and the day we were out there, just commemorating the the rock and honoring Audrey and Speaker Chop, it was pouring down
Oh,
rain.
it was just terrible.
And there wasn't enough room under the tents because there were so many people from the community there. It was really special.
It was really great.
And Audrey's quite an inspiration.
Josh, let's talk a little bit about the homeless situation in our community and what the county's doing to work with lots of agencies on a plan and how we're going to address and
Char,
help the homeless.
these are really challenging times. There's different homeless counts that are made available. We have physical homeless counts where volunteers go out and physically count once a year the number of individuals who are homeless. The state through DSHS, when people apply for for various support programs, they do estimates of how many people, what percentage are homeless. So we have different ways that this is counted because it's not a perfect science. But what we know is that over the last year, the percentage of individuals who are homeless in this county has increased significantly, maybe 50% increase. If we look at the last 3 years since this recession took hold, we are looking at an increase that's between 200% and 300%. Staggering numbers. So this is a major crisis that our community and many of our friends and neighbors are dealing with. And you have many different types of homelessness. We have hundreds of kids, teens, who are in our community who don't have a stable home. Maybe their parents have drug addictions, maybe there's violence, maybe their parents are homeless themselves. There's many different varieties. But we have hundreds of kids in each of our school districts that are ID'd as homeless, and they go to school, they do homework, but what happens is they're couch surfing during the week.
Exactly.
And that's you're identified as being homeless if you're couch surfing, going from one friend's house to the next. We have a lot of parents with children who are homeless. We have a lot of people who are homeless who are working, amazingly. With the real estate economy, with foreclosures, the breadth and diversity of individuals who are homeless is much broader than it was before the recession. I think there's a lot of assumptions that folks who are homeless might have a chemical dependency or mental illness issue. Well, maybe those are high percentages when the economy is good, but times like these, it's very diverse. So we've had a lot of folks are familiar because there's been a lot of coverage in the paper about a proposal to build a homeless encampment for anywhere between 30 and 40 families in East Bremerton. There hasn't, as of today, November 4th, there hasn't been a formal permit submitted to the county. There's a lot of details to work out for an agreement and for that proposal. What's really critical, I think, is for temporary housing. We call them tent cities. That's been the name associated with them. And in other communities, they're literally tents that move every few months. And this proposal is a little more permanent in terms of what they're looking to do, which is triggering just a lot of issues that need to be examined. But long story short, the county, we're going to be collaborative with partners in the community who are trying to solve problems. At the same time, we need to make sure that as we're dealing with the homeless epidemic, that we're doing so in a way that ensures that we're protecting the public's interest for the individuals who are homeless that would be living in the shelters, making sure that they're safe, sanitary, healthy conditions for them, making sure that we have neighborhood compatibility. We have had a lot of successes in this county over the last couple of years. Here's a couple. Number one, at the President's Hall, when we have extreme weather conditions, when the temperature goes down below freezing, we open up that emergency shelter. That was something that the county didn't do before I became county commissioner. We started doing that a couple years ago. We're going to continue to do that. Is it a perfect solution? Absolutely not. But it saves lives.
It's warm.
Because when people are out on the streets and it's freezing outside, that's when people have higher percentages of dying due to exposure. We created the Safe Park program. The Safe Park program is a partnership between the county, Kitsap Community Resources, whereby individuals and families can sign up. They can park at the fairgrounds complex, and there's 9 slots available for individuals to be able to sleep in their cars. Why is that important? Because in several of our cities, and not to pick on the city of Bremerton, but we have a lot of issues in the city of Bremerton, so this comes up more so there than in other cities. It's illegal to sleep in your car in the city of Bremerton on a public street. So if you just lost your house last night because of foreclosure, or you just lost your apartment because you couldn't make a rent payment, you couldn't sleep in your car with your family or individually right on the street in front of the house or the apartment you just lost. It's illegal. So where do people go? Well, what happens is people will park in the back of a big box retailer, or they'll park in the back of an industrial building. They'll park on private property where they're not allowed to be. So they're not allowed to be on city streets. You know, a lot of our county roads don't have places where people can park. They can't be on private property, so where do people go? It's a big challenge, and that's the Safe Park program is part of the focus on trying to be part of that solution. We also last year opened up a shelter for homeless women with children in Silverdale, which has served, I think, 30 or 40 families so far. Mothers who are oftentimes leaving violent, domestic abuse situations have a place to go with their kids, because having a shelter where women and children are safe and where it makes sense for them to be is very different than a 40-year-old or a 25-year-old single male. You know, it's not very compatible to have a shelter where you have mostly single men, and then suddenly, you know, you're going to have a mother with her children be there. So these are a lot of issues, and I'm kind of giving you a broad brush view of the challenges that we're faced with. But you know, a big part of my job is working with leaders in our community, faith-based organizations, working with the cities, working with various nonprofit service providers like Kitsap Community Resources, to figure out how do we deal with this. And you know, quite candidly, you know, the situation is overwhelming at this point. There's not enough resources to go around, and we're really struggling to try to come up with solutions that make sense. So it's a big challenge.
Big challenge. Well, speaking of another challenge, the county budget, and I know that's...
Save the easiest for last.
No, we've got a high note to end with, but spend a few minutes on the county budget.
Well, here's where we're at with the county's budget so far. We have put together a preliminary draft budget. And what that means is, before we go to a public hearing in a couple weeks, we've put together a budget. This budget that we have put together does a couple things. Number one, we cut $5 million from our general fund budget for this year. My first year as county commissioner in 2007, our general fund budget was $93 million. The budget that we plan to adopt for 2011 is $79 million. We've cut $14 million in 4 years. And we've made a lot of cuts in a lot of areas. And people every day are seeing the limitations of our county budget, whether it's the fact that the admin building's closed on Fridays, the fact that our staffing levels are reduced in various areas, the fact that we're asking neighbors and volunteers to help step up to the plate to maintain parks. But we're trying every day to fund the core priorities of expected by our constituents and manage the county in a fiscally responsible way. We went through this year in the most open, transparent process this county or probably any jurisdiction in Kitsap County has ever had. And when we had our budget deliberation meetings, when departments and outside agencies came to the county to ask for funding, we had all of our meetings available online. They were taped by BKAT, available and played back on BKAT. All the materials were online, really trying to have an open process. And we went through on a program basis, meaning we didn't do across-the-board cuts. We looked at each program, each department, everything we're funding, and we rated things individually. And the range of cuts, some departments were cut 2%, like the Sheriff's Department. Other departments were cut 22%. and many departments were somewhere in between. But we really looked at each priority and said, where can we make the cuts? The end result is that we have made enough cuts to, number one, balance the budget without dipping into reserves for 2011. But even more important, we have at this point $1.3 million set aside to be able to build reserves up. Our reserves are a little over $4 million, so we're going to be able to increase reserves. And we're going to, we're committed as a board to set aside at a minimum $1 million to build up reserves. We may take some of that $300,000 and say, well, what are some core things that we probably should be funding? I'm really concerned about our juvenile detention program and a lot of funding that's gone away from the state of Washington that we may need to backfill, some other critical programs that are in needs. But I'm proud of this process because it's been open and transparent, and we've been able to not only build up reserves for 2011, but at the same time we've kept our jail capacity at 420 beds. We're not being forced to lay off any sheriff's deputies. We have a couple positions that are vacant that we're not going to fund next year, but we're not going to make any layoffs in our sheriff's department, and we're able to keep our level of criminal prosecutors to be able to take care of the cases that are really critical. So I'm proud of the budget process we've gone through, and it's been a collaborative effort, and I appreciate the work of my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners, our staff, and our separately electeds to make some tough decisions.
And plus the citizens that sat in on those. There was a citizens committee as well.
Yeah, we had representatives from each department and several citizens that gave us very good insights and really helped this year. So we're going to continue to improve that process in the coming years.
Good. Well, let's finish up with the award that the county auditor received.
Well, the credit goes to our county auditor office and our auditor, Walt Washington. But Kitsap County is the first county in the nation that has adopted e-balloting. So what that means is that and a good example is if you are in the Army or the Marine Corps and you're fighting in Afghanistan and you're in the infantry division, which my brother was when he was in the Marines, and you can't get your ballot to vote. E-balloting allows you to be anywhere in the world as long as you have internet access and you have a printer, and you can access your ballot to fill out, print it, and mail it back to the county. One of the biggest issues that folks are faced with when it comes to voting overseas is getting the ballot to them. Right. This solves that problem and allows our servicemen and works people who are doing mission work overseas or traveling to be able to access their ballots, print it up at their location, get the right ballot, sign it, and mail it in. They still have to mail it in on time, right? But this solves half the problem. So we're really honored, especially in a military community like Kitsap County, to take the lead on this and be the first county, be recognized for the work on implementing that e-balloting. So
that's great. Well, Josh, I want to commend you again for winning the election, and
thanks. You
are going to go off for a very well-deserved vacation, and we look forward to hearing from you in 2011 and what the county's going to be up to.
I look forward to it. Thank you for your time, all your great questions, and thank you for everybody who have tuned in to Commissioner's Corner. We look forward to chatting with you next time.